My guest is Jonathan Gibson. He's the executive vice president of the Penske Corporation. He leads the marketing and business development for Roger Penske and the Penske Corporation. Penske is a global business with revenues of $45 billion and over 75,000 employees. In 2020, Penske purchased the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the INDYCAR series. This past weekend, I'm sure you were watching, Indianapolis hosted the world's largest single-day sporting event, the Indy 500. Jonathan, thanks for joining me on Sports Business Radio. How are you?
I'm doing great, Brian. It's great to see you. Happy Memorial Day.
Happy Memorial Day to you, too. What a race. The most number of lead changes, the closest finish in the history of the Indy 500. It's been going on for 110 years. How do you produce a race of this magnitude where you've got over 300,000 people in attendance?
It's amazing, Brian. Yesterday was a spectacle. And when you think about the Indy 500, right, we've got 232,000 grandstand seats that go around the speedway, and you get another 80,000 plus that are in the infield, plus suites, plus personnel. And so it's over 330,000 people that are there. And if you think about that business that we've got 250 full-time employees, but on race day, we have over 15,000 people that are working for us across the venue, taking care of our customer, making sure it's a great experience. When you have that many people, you want to make sure they have a great experience. And we invest in that. It's interesting. All businesses, as you know, Brian, have net promoter scores. And we do a survey with our customers every year. And our net promoter score is over 80, almost, I think 84, wow. 85. And so it's world class. It's Apple, it's Amazon, it's brands like that had NPS scores. And so we really invest in the customer experience. And, yesterday was a home run for our team. And we got a great team down there.
Let's back up for a minute. So as I mentioned at the top, Penske purchased Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the Indy 500, the INDYCAR series. Walk us back through that. What led to that transaction and how have you helped, I would say, supercharge the business since you came on board?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, think about our business. We're in automotive. We're in trucking, and then we've also got Team Penske, which is our racing team. And so we've been competing at the Indianapolis 500 since 1969. And actually, Roger, our founder, went there in 1951 with his dad. So we've been going there a long time. And so, there's been 3 previous owners of the business over the last 100 years. And in 2019, the previous ownership approached Roger about acquiring the business. And, we've been in track ownership before. We owned it, Michigan International Raceway. We owned California Speedway and other racetracks, around the country. And so we jumped at the opportunity. It's a crown jewel in motorsports. It's a crown jewel in sports venues. And we bought the business. You'll like this, Brian. We bought the business in January of 2020, 2 months before a pandemic.
Wow.
And so, you obviously you tell your bankers, you got a financial plan, you got 300,000 people that are going to be there in May. And then the pandemic happens and we had 2,500 people there that year in August. But I'll tell you, since 2020, when we bought the business, we put in over $100 million into the business, all focused on the guest experience, making the speedway better, restrooms, concessions, technology, digital screens. And, like you said, we've supercharged the business. We got great teams. We got a great partner now in Fox, which we can talk about, but really have a tremendous amount of momentum.
Let's talk about that. The TV partner is so vital in deals like this. Like you mentioned, Fox Sports is one of your partners. They do a great job with the race, from the commentary to, the slow-mo angles of that finish, and showing it to us from every angle was some award-winning technology in TV when I watched it. But how important is it to have a partner like Fox Sports in order to have success?
Well, obviously a television partner in sports is critically important to make sure that you have the right partner from a production standpoint, but also just from an engagement and reach perspective. And if you go back to our previous partner was NBC. And so when we went to market on our television rights in 2024, as you can imagine, we engaged with everybody. We talked to all the streamers, obviously all the networks, and we had some tremendous opportunities. But as we got an opportunity to really get to know Eric Shanks even better and his team and the commitment they have to INDYCAR and how bullish they are on the growth of the sport, it was a no-brainer. And, obviously, we've seen what they've done. They came out of the gate strong. We had 3 INDYCAR spots in their first Super Bowl. And then the way they promote it, their drivers, our teams, it's interesting too. And then about 6 months into the relationship, I got a call one day from Jordan Bazant on the Fox team about their interest in acquiring an interest in the INDYCAR from an equity perspective. And so August of 2025, we were able to establish a partnership where they own 1/3 of Penske Entertainment. And so not only are they a television partner, but they're an equity partner in the business. And they are really bullish like we are on the opportunity to continue to grow the business. And if you think about viewership, 2025 was their first year as a television partner. And we were up 27% from a viewership perspective last year, which if you think about sports that have viewership of over 1 million people, it was the fastest growing sport last year. This year, we're up 32% year to date before the 500. And so it just continues to grow. And like I said, we're excited about the future.
Well, and I've got to think the numbers haven't come out yet. The race yesterday, as we record this, is probably going to be one of the most watched races ever, I would think, because of that finish and just, so much drama building into this. But my question to you now is, when you've got Fox, who's got skin in the game, they're not just a media partner, they've got skin in the game. How does that change the dynamic of the relationship?
Well, it's great. They really look at the business as owners of the business as they are. And we sit down and we look at, next year, the year after, we look at our events, we look at our digital strategies, content, and really the collective business. And, I can tell you, we weren't out there looking for capital to find a partner. It just was the perfect marriage because of their belief and their commitment to the sport. And so it's just a tremendous platform for both of us.
Well, and we're seeing this more. I mean, NFL and ESPN did this. We're seeing this more and more. I think it's got to help the IndyCar series and clearly the NFL as well.
Yeah, I think so too. It's if you think about the consumption and how fans consume sports now, it's not just one platform. And so when you have a media partner like Fox, who has a global media business and so many different platforms they can use to not only promote the sport, but to engage fans and new fans, it just gives us a way to surround the consumer from a marketing promotion and really begin to grow the fan base. We've got 33 yesterday, just world-class drivers, great personalities, and we can work together with Fox to grow their brands as well and our team's brands and the partners that are already engaged in the sport. And so it's just 1 + 1 = 3.
So I pay attention to things like this. So Gainbridge, big sponsor of the Indianapolis 500, who do they happen to work closely with? Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark, Grand Marshal of the Indianapolis 500. Everyone working together in concert. And Caitlin Clark, one of the most popular athletes on the planet right now. That was great too. I loved, you had the customized helmet for her. There were so many great activations around Caitlin Clark being the starter of the race yesterday.
Yeah, it's great. Dan Towers, who is the CEO of Gainbridge and obviously runs the Cadillac F1 program and obviously Andretti Autosport and INDYCAR, obviously is a great partner of ours. They're the presenting sponsor of the 500. And, they brought us the opportunity with Caitlin Clark. She's obviously a legend already and a huge part of the Indianapolis market from a sports perspective. And so having her come out and be the Grand Marshal and really invite the drivers to go to their cars and make that big announcement was a big deal for us. And our team, I'll tell you, led by Alex Dameron and Allison Millington and all the folks in Indianapolis, do a great job of bringing in celebrities, influencers, and really making them part of the show and making it a great experience for them so they want to come back.
If you've never been to the Indianapolis 500 like myself, what are the 3 things that you need to do when you come to the race, other than, of course, watch the race?
It's a great question. When I think about the Speedway, the first thing with the 500 that I like to think about is really the pomp and circumstance that happens before the race. There's nothing like having 330,000 people before the race, and you go through God Bless America, America the Beautiful, back home in Indiana. But I'll tell you, Brian, when they play Taps and
Hmm.
there's 330,000 people there, and you can hear a pen drop in the place. It gives you goosebumps. And it's just a way we honor the men and women and our first responders, the military. Second thing, when you come to the race, we have an EDM music festival that takes place inside the speedway. There's 30,000 18 to 24-year-olds that are listening to EDM music in turn three. And we sold that out for the first time since 2016, I believe, on Saturday. And so it took place on Sunday. But anyways, that's amazing. And then obviously just the speed of the cars. Seeing those cars go 240 miles an hour into turn one, the side-by-side passing, you saw it on TV yesterday. The competition we have and the competitive nature of our sport, there's nothing like it in motorsports.
Well, I think one of the great things that Fox does is taking us into the car, hearing the communication with the pit crew. There's just so many ways that you feel like an insider when you're watching the race on Fox and any of the IndyCar series races. I have had the amazing fortune of being in a two-seater and racing around the track at about 175 miles an hour. I was not driving, but it gives you a sense when you're watching the broadcast of how fast they're going, what the communication is, what is happening at certain points of the race. I think a lot of people saw the movie F1, and I know this is IndyCar, but it still gave you an insider's perspective of what's happening with the crew and what's happening with the drivers. I love all of that.
Yeah, it's amazing. There's thousands of data points coming off the car from a technology perspective at real time. And, if you think about, I talked about earlier, the investment Fox made from a production perspective, but, they've got these driver's eye cameras now where you can actually see the view the drivers have through the windshield as they're racing and the cars going around them. And that's amazing. And you talked about the two-seater. That's a great customer experience platform we have where you can actually get in the car with the driver and go 170, 180 miles an hour around the track. And we do that at every racetrack with our customers. And so, what you want to do with our broadcast and with our digital platforms and everything we have is bring the fans closer into the sport. Let them see what's taking place. You mentioned the pit crews. They're doing 6-second, 7-second pit stops throughout the race. And so it's just an amazing platform, to see the sport through so many different angles.
The Indianapolis 500, as we said, largest single day sporting event in the United States. How do you get people engaged with the other IndyCar series events and put some personality on the drivers where we start to know the drivers and follow them on their social media platforms and follow them in their commercials and things of that nature?
Yeah, it's great. We've got a race this weekend in Detroit. And as I mentioned earlier, we've got great drivers who have terrific personalities. If you think about when we bought the business back in 2020, one of the first things we did is double the size of our content staff and our digital staff. We wanted to invest in those stories, our driver stories, and begin to, grow the tribe, so to speak, of our fans. And, yesterday, hopefully we had over 8 million people watching the race. And, we want those people to tune in this week in Detroit and be able to see the tenacity, the athleticism in our pit crews and our drivers, and really the personalities of our sport that makes it so special. We'll be racing through the streets of downtown Detroit this weekend on Sunday. And so it's a different type of race, but it's just as exciting. And so, we want them to tune in a week later next Sunday.
I think people wonder, how do they determine whether it's an oval race like the Indy 500 or you're racing through the streets? How do you determine what the track is going to be?
Well, it's important for us as you think about IndyCar. What makes us unique is the diversity of the tracks, right? We race on ovals, street courses, and road courses. And right now we've got 18 races across the series. So we've got, I think there's 6 ovals, 6 street courses, and 6 road courses. And it really shows the talent and the drive of our drivers to be able to compete on all 3 of those and be successful. And so, we try to keep an even balance between those, but obviously the iconic nature of the Indianapolis 500, we want to have other ovals that obviously lead up to that.
Who are some of the drivers we should be paying attention to? I mean, again, yesterday, such a compelling finish. It seems like there were so many lead changes. What were there, 70 lead changes throughout the race, more than any other Indy 500? So, I don't see like a dominant star or two. I see there's a lot of parity across the driver pool.
There is. I'll tell you, Alex Palou, though, over the last couple of years has set the bar pretty high from a wins perspective and also from a championship perspective. He finished seventh yesterday. But you got to take your hat off to Felix Rosenqvist for winning that race yesterday. The energy and the drive he had coming out of turn 4 to pass David Malukas was pretty impressive. But we do have, you think about Pato O'Ward, Alex Palou, Scott McLaughlin, David Malukas, Kyle Kirkwood, just amazing drivers. They're at the very top of their game. And as I mentioned earlier, just great personalities. They're young, they're diverse. I think we've got 14 different countries represented on our grid out of our 27 full-time drivers.
How do you make this global then? If you've got all these different countries represented, how do you make IndyCar global?
Well, first of all, we've got great global TV partners. I think we're in over 50 countries. A great platform for fans to engage with our drivers. Felix Rosenqvist is from Sweden. And so we've got a great partner over there that are promoting our sport. We do race in Canada already. And so we've got a new race actually in Toronto, a suburb of Toronto this year called Markham. And we've got other opportunities. We've competed in Brazil. We've competed in other markets internationally, and we're evaluating those opportunities. Our focus is on North America, but if the right opportunity internationally comes to us, we'll take advantage of it.
Yeah, it seems that's where everything's going. I mean, I look at the NFL and the NBA and Major League Baseball are all playing more games internationally. It would seem that, like you said, if the right opportunity comes along, that's the probable next place for expansion. Would you agree?
I would, yeah. I mean, look, there's still some markets in the U.S. that we're looking at, the Northwest perspective, Northeast maybe. We had a new event this year. We had a joint venture with the Dallas Cowboys and the Texas Rangers. We were raced around AT&T Stadium and Globe Life Field. And so there's still some markets in the U.S. that are very attractive to us. But obviously, as the right opportunities come to us internationally, we're going to take a hard look at them. I have to say, too, I'm sure you've read about our race in Washington, D.C., that's going to compete on the mall in front of the U.S. Capitol on August 23rd. It's called the Freedom 250 Grand Prix. We're going to celebrate our country's 250th anniversary in Washington, D.C., and it's going to be an amazing race, racing down Pennsylvania Avenue. That's going to be just a spectacle for our sport.
Yeah, I'm going to be there in a few weeks, so I will be excited to then watch on TV all the places that I saw while I was there in person. That's a great idea.
That's great. It's going to be an awesome event.
And is that on Fox as well, I would assume?
That'll be on Fox Sunday, August 23rd. And, it's a free ticketed event for fans. So we'll probably have 130,000 people on each day. And then, the amount of partners that have been engaged with that event it's really just going to be a spectacle.
So where are you with partnerships? I mean, we've mentioned Gainbridge, obviously Fox. For people listening to this, if they want to engage with IndyCar series, you're the biz dev guy. Like, how do they get involved if they want to be a part of this?
Well, first of all, we've got over 80 different partners across the Penske ecosystem. We got great brands, long-term brands. Our average tenure, Brian, you work in sports, our average tenure is 15 years.
Wow.
And so we get partners, we take care of them, and we try to grow the relationships together. We got a great business development team. Bree Young, who leads it for us at Penske Entertainment, has got a great team. And then, as you can imagine, we're working with Fox. And so we're selling integrated partnerships where you can be a media partner, an event partner, a league partner. And so there's a lot of ways to engage. That's one of the great things about motorsports is there's no one size fits all type of approach. Everything's bespoke. And, if you think about it, since we bought the business, we've doubled our revenue from a partnership perspective, and we've added, I think, over 25 new brands. And so it's just been a phenomenal platform for us. And there's nothing like the Indianapolis 500 that we had yesterday. And then we've got, 17 other races that are terrific platforms for our partners.
I know people are wondering this, so I'm going to ask you to explain. So you oversee the entire series, but then Team Penske still has race cars and drivers that you're overseeing as well. So you're focusing on the big picture of the whole series, but then you've also got race teams, right?
Yeah, so I've worked for Penske for nearly 20 years, and we've been competing on the racetrack, as I mentioned earlier, since the 1960s. And so we've competed in Formula One, we've competed in INDYCAR, obviously, NASCAR, sports cars, Australian supercars. And so, obviously, we've got a great team. They're based out of Mooresville, North Carolina. We've got almost 500 employees down there that compete across all the different series where we are. And so, obviously, I spend a lot of time on that as well. And, many of our partners that are partners of Team Penske also invest to be partnerships with Indianapolis Motor Speedway and INDYCAR.
Wow. I've got to ask you, as someone who was at the Indianapolis 500, the story in motor racing the last week is the tragic passing of Kyle Busch. There were some amazing tributes at the Indy 500. What was it like being there? He was such a revered figure in motorsports.
It's been a really hard week, Brian. Kyle's brother, Kurt, drove for us, for I think 5 or 6 years. And so I got to know the Busch family, and, he's a legend, Kyle Busch, and the tenacity, what he brought to the sport of NASCAR is really amazing. Any track that he competed on, he could have won. But what a lot of people don't know and didn't see is he was a great husband, a great father. His commitment to give back was there through his foundation. And it's just a tremendous tragedy because, he's somebody who I think that every driver in NASCAR felt like he was the one that set the bar for the sport. And so to lose him so young it's been a tough week.
I haven't been around the motorsports community a lot, but when I have been, it seems like no matter what the discipline, whether it's IndyCar Series, NASCAR, F1, it's a really tight-knit community and everyone knows everyone. And when something like this happens, it's a loss across the board.
It is. You think about motorsports, right? I mean, these drivers, they travel with their motorhomes. NASCAR's got 38 weekends a year. And so they park in the same lot at the track. Their families get to know each other. And so they compete against each other during the races, but they really get to know each other off the track. And so to lose somebody who meant so much to the sport, it's really tough. And it's not just NASCAR too; it's the whole motorsports world who admired Kyle for what he did. And there was a lot of talk that Kyle wanted to race in the Indianapolis 500. And, unfortunately he won't get that opportunity. And that's a huge loss too, because he was a world-class talent, and he's got 2 young kids, Brexton and Lennox, and Samantha, his wife, and our prayers and our thoughts are with them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Such a tremendous loss. All right. Before I let you go, what's next for Penske? What should we be looking for with the rest of the IndyCar series this year? And, anything down the road, and that could be technology, TV, like you said, looking at global expansion potentially. What should we be paying attention to?
Well, I mentioned earlier, we've got a tremendous back half of the schedule. I mentioned Detroit.
Yep.
Then we go to St. Louis. We're in prime time. And I mentioned Toronto in August. We got the Freedom 250, which is a huge platform for us in Washington, D.C. And then we close the season in Laguna Seca, in Northern California, at the end of August. And so, we're going to continue to innovate from an events perspective. I touched on what we did with the Dallas Cowboys and the Texas Rangers. We're looking at other markets, other strategic partnerships we could have. When we did the relationship with the Cowboys and the Rangers and the success we saw with that event, other NFL teams have reached out because they want to forge similar relationships with us and put on events around their stadiums. And so I think more innovation around our schedule. We're looking at pretty unique, what I would call content partnerships. We're looking at scripted series, potential motion picture opportunities, unscripted series. This year, through our partnership with Fox, we launched a unique platform with Shadow Lion, which is an agency owned by Tom Brady. and we're doing short form content every week, 15, 20-minute videos that really bring fans deeper into the sport, get to know the personalities of the owners, the drivers. And I think more of investments in those types of content you'll see. And then I think lastly, we've got a video game that's coming out later this year. First one since 2005. And it's going to be a great platform for us to engage the youth and younger audience. And so, look, the sky's the limit with INDYCAR right now. And we got a great partnership with Fox. We got a great team led by Mark Miles and Doug Bowles and, the 250 people I mentioned earlier. And so I couldn't be more excited about where we're going.
Jonathan Gibson, the Executive Vice President of the Penske Corporation. Thanks so much for joining me on Sports Business Radio. Congratulations on the Indy 500 and all that you've got going on.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. It's a real honor. You got a great platform here.